welcome to my second video of the Anatomy of a Webcomic series on YouTube. Today I will be showing you how I approached the second panel from my webcomic Dijwar, an Imperial Prelude, and I will be diving more into a crowd scene, and I will talk a little bit about what's going on in my head, how I'm using certain tools that I'm working with, and how I approach all of the things that you see in the panel. I hope you guys like what you see in this second panel and what you've seen in the last video. And if you guys want to see more, please let me know. Let me know what interests you, especially about these videos. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share my video, of course. And if you're interested to see more of my stuff, not just the videos, please go to my Instagram, it's at Sedat Özgen, or to my Facebook, it's at Sedat Özgen Art, and hope to see you guys over there as well. See you later and enjoy the video. Bye bye. Alright everyone, and welcome to a new video of my Anatomy of a Webcomic series. I am in this part looking for the right perspective that I'm going to be using for this panel. I am using a 2-point perspective, and as you can see, I tilted the perspective a little bit in order to make it, a little bit more interesting and dynamic. And I'm finished the first character in the foreground, which is going to be a silhouette, and now I'm starting to draw and build the other characters in the panel. Since this is going to be yet another crowd scene, I am just basically drawing characters in there and designing them as I go. Having fun here. It's always interesting because you can come up with all sorts of looks when you're doing that. And once again, I am doing this part digital because it allows me to be more free in placing characters here and there and changing stuff. And just as I mentioned in the first video of this series, it also gives me the freedom and the ability to be faster because I'm doing this in my free time, and unfortunately I don't have too much time that I can spend on doing stuff that's not work related, and therefore I am doing this stuff, the layout part, which is usually for me the hardest part, digital. And as you can see, I am now working with or on the background. The cool thing in Clip Studio Paint is that once you've found your perspective, you can basically just use the ruler for the perspective grid in order to draw the background and make it, all work in favor of the perspective that that you choose for that part. And now I printed everything out and put it on a lightbox, and I'm now starting to trace, so to say, the layouts. But you will see that during this process, even if I drawing over the lightbox, I am making a bunch of changes, and it's not actually tracing because the characters now look or will look different than they've looked in the initial layout, because I wasn't so happy with what some of the characters looked like, and therefore I changed it up a little bit and made some minor tweaks here and there. And I think it it just goes to show that all of this stuff that I've done digital isn't because I can't do it on paper, but it's just because I don't have the time to do it on paper, or to find the right lines on paper, and therefore I had to use Clip Studio in order to make a layout, because the layout probably took me around 30 minutes or 20 minutes, and if I had done it on paper, it would have probably, taken me at least 1 hour or maybe even more. And you want to work smart, not hard, and that's what I did here. And unfortunately, the light is a little bit dim in this segment of the video, but later on, I will, once I go over to the inks, it will all be a little bit brighter, and you can see stuff clearer. And I also got to figure out something for my camera, because unfortunately the camera holder is attached to my table, and once I start drawing or erasing something, everything starts to become a little bit shaky. And I gotta find a solution for that as well. And yeah, I'm now working on the backgrounds. Since I did everything with the ruler in the layout stage, I don't have to figure out if these backgrounds are correct in terms of perspective and everything. And all I just gotta make sure that everything goes towards the vanishing point, and it works. I'm happy with it, and I will be even more happy later on when I'm finished with it, because I think it looks quite good. It's always hard to look at your own work and to like it, but I've learned that at some point you gotta just accept that this is the best that you can do right now. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be critical of your own work. It's very important to be critical and to make sure that you always do your best stuff, but at some point you gotta say, hey, you know what, I did my best and this is what I can do now. And learn from it, and then continue and do something else, or because it doesn't have to be perfect. The one thing that's important is that it's finished, and that you work on it and improve by doing it. And this is what I'm trying here. I am doing all of this stuff because I enjoy it. I've been wanting to do this for a very, very, very long time, and now with doing all of this digital and then printing it out, I have found a ways and means in order to make it work. And now I am starting with the inks. I am using my aqua brush pen again for the black spotting. I always find it the best to go in with the aqua brush pen first, because it allows me to spot the blacks and not make myself get lost in details or stuff like that. And therefore I'm starting with black spotting here. And this is a quite small drawing, as you can see. Although my hands look like sausages, it's quite small. And the cool thing is that the aqua brush pen can be used for detailed but also broader strokes, and this is why I'm using it in this part of the drawing, or in this segment of the drawing. And as you can see, it's slowly but surely coming alive. The character that was just a few strokes a few moments ago is now becoming a person, so to say. It's a character now in a drawing. It could be someone that maybe we will meet him again at some place, or maybe he has his own background story. Who knows? But I want to, or at least my idea was to make these characters look as interesting as possible, and to make everything fit into the, story that I'm trying to tell here. And I am a big science fiction and cyberpunk fan, and always been a big fan of Ridley Scott, and obviously his work on Alien and Blade Runner has had a deep impact on my work. And I always loved the crowd scenes in the original Blade Runner movie, and thought this would be something the future could look like. And whenever I'm having the chance to do something like that in one of my science fiction comics, I am trying to um, do that as well. It's some sort of an homage to the great Ridley Scott, and his work has influenced me, and I think many of the movies that he worked on or that he was involved in influenced me as well. It's not just the movies where he directed, but also where he was a producer. For example, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, and obviously the Blade Runner 2049 movie. And you know, um, Ridley Scott is a world builder, and what I'm doing here is my attempt at doing the same thing. I'm not trying to swipe or to imitate what he did, but I'm trying to find my own approach to what he did, and I hope it shows. I hope that it works. And I am so far very pleased with how it's turning out, and you know, I think it's it's heading into the right direction, and I'm quite happy with it. And the one thing that, especially if you want to be a comic book artist, is that you should learn very early on, is that you shouldn't be just looking into comics when you're trying to learn about storytelling. You should also look at TV shows and movies and see how the directors or the cameraman choose his angles, how they did some of the compositions in the shot, and how they arranged the people or the objects in the frame. And from that you can learn a lot, and that's always very important, because when I was younger I would mainly be influenced by comics and only comics. And although it was great that I was influenced by them, uh, mainly influenced by them, I should have also I wish I would have also been influenced by movies, or more influenced by movies such as Ridley Scott or Stanley Kubrick movies, because once I came across some of the movies when I was a little bit more mature, I started to understand what these guys were doing. And I wish I would have come across some of that stuff earlier, because then I may have or would have incorporated it into my own comics as well. But you always learn, and you're never too old to learn. And it's it's always very humbling when you see how good some people in their own fields are. And it doesn't have to be just comics or art. It can be music, movies, whatever. You just go and be inspired by someone else, and then try to in some way use that inspiration and uh, um, get that into your own work. And you know and now I am adding a bunch of details. I am doing a little bit more rendering here now, and I like where this is going. The characters in this whole thing look very unique, I would say. I think they have their own look, and I don't know any other comic where you would see these characters. And I like how it's turning out, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. And drawing comic panels is always a little bit different from drawing pinups, because pinups you have to always make everything look as epic as possible. And I think I mean you should try to do it with your panels as well. But in panels, I always feel like that storytelling is key, and that's what's the most important thing for me, at least, because when you look at some comics, there are some artists who are doing amazing work, but unfortunately, then the storytelling isn't as powerful as some of their images are, and for me personally, I prefer clear and good storytelling over uh, um, crazy shots or something like that, because once again, if you ask me if I'd prefer a Ridley Scott movie or a Michael Bay movie, Michael Bay definitely has those crazier shots and everything is way more, quote unquote epic, but still I would go for Ridley Scott because, his aesthetics, his storytelling, his world building is, in my opinion, way more way more believable and much more aesthetic than, for example, Michael Bay or someone like that. I mean, there is nothing wrong with Michael Bay. If you like Michael Bay, that's cool. But for me, it's more about that stuff, and the same goes for comics. I am not the biggest fan of I don't know certain action oriented stuff, but I prefer stuff that's really atmospheric and has great storytelling. For example, Mobius is one of those great artists who's really good at creating and conveying atmosphere, and then also doing very beautiful storytelling. And his line work was perfect. Jorge Salfino is one of the other artists who was really good at what he was doing. The atmosphere that he was able to create with his line work was just out of this world. And if you look at his work, I think a layman may not see the genius in his work, but then every artist will look at his work, or every professional artist and some people who have a good understanding of art will look at, for example, someone like Jorge Safino, and they will tell you that his work is just pure genius. And yeah, and now I am adding the lines to the background. I am making the background look a little bit used up, dirty and gritty, and I think this helps in order to create this realistic touch of the future, because I want to make the future or this stuff look like a used future, like actually people living there. I think I said this in one of the earlier videos. I don't like the Shining version of the future, but I prefer having something that looks like that people actually live there. And if you look at a building, for example, in the city that you live in, no matter how well preserved it is, there will be some sort of worn down areas and dirt and whatever, and therefore you have to or therefore I want to have that stuff uh, in my backgrounds too. I want to make it look believable, and yeah, and I like where it's going. And now I'm adding some sort of signs to the neon lights. And since this is something in space in the future, they may be using another form of writing and other letters than we are using. And I'm just having fun. I could have probably looked up some Chinese or Japanese letters, but in order to make it a little bit more interesting, but I didn't want to pin this down onto one culture. I think the future may be way more mixed in terms of cultures and um, influences that we will see, and especially if you think that at some point maybe humans will be going into space, that things will be way different than we know it now. And this is my own world, and I am quote unquote the creator of this world, and therefore I am able to do what I want to do, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I am having fun, and this is the most important thing for me, to be having fun. And I hope you guys are enjoying this as well, and I hope this is somehow helpful to you as well. And if you like what you see, guys, then please subscribe to my channel, and like and comment on the videos. And also please follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I think that a lot of this stuff maybe it's interesting for you or your friends, and you can share it with your friends as well, of course. And I'm now heading towards the end of the video. I am now filling in the black areas that I left open, because I didn't want to do it while I was still figuring out some of the line art. And yeah, basically just now adding blacks into the drawing, and therefore fleshing it out. At least I hope that's what's happening here. And yeah, it's coming nicely together. Since I am not going to be coloring this is my form of finalizing the piece, because there's not enough time for me in the day to do the coloring too. So you just have to be happy with the black and white. But I think it looks cool in black and white too. At least I hope so. And yeah, and I like where it's going, and I like that it's also that it has a unique look to it. And yeah, and I think I am going to be adding a few cables to the top of the drawing, but then my camera craps out on me. But first I'm erasing the pencil lines, and there you can see all of a sudden there are cables there, which I had to erase, which unfortunately wasn't shown because my camera crapped out. But I hope you guys liked what you saw here. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye bye.